Good morning or good afternoon, depending on your time zone, and thank you for joining today's webinar entitled Injection Molding versus Direct Digital Manufacturing, How to Pick the Winning Technology for Low-Volume Production. My name is Joe Hemans, and I'll be the host for today's presentation, and in just a minute I'll turn over the mic to our speaker, Jeff Hansen. Jeff is with Red Eye On Demand, a digital manufacturing facility by Stratasys. Besides operating Red Eye, Stratasys makes additive manufacturing systems, or in other words, machines that build plastic parts up layer by layer from a CAD file. Stratasys operates the Dimension Group, which provides 3D printers, and the Fortis Group, which provides 3D production systems. 3D printers and 3D production systems are used by both design engineers for prototyping and manufacturing engineers for production. Before turning it over to our speaker, here's some brief background on him. Jeff Hansen is Business Development Manager at Red Eye On Demand. In his 18 years at Stratasys, he has worked in new product development, application engineering, sales management, and business development. Jeff has made important contributions to the design of Stratasys machines as well as to the water-soluble support material known as Waterworks. He holds multiple patents on Stratasys technology. Before joining Stratasys, Jeff spent 13 years as an engineer with both Donaldson Manufacturing, where he worked in design and manufacturing of commercial filtration systems, and Thermo King, where he designed transport refrigeration systems. Jeff has extensive experience with several CAD software packages, and he is an experienced programmer of production CNC machines. With that, here's Jeff.
Thanks, Joe. And thanks for joining, everyone. Like Joe said, we're going to talk a little bit about direct digital manufacturing, and we're going to compare digital manufacturing with traditional technology of injection molding. To start with, we're going to talk a little bit about terminology. And where does direct digital manufacturing fit, or DDM? We're going to talk about the cost difference of low-volume injection molding versus direct digital manufacturing. We're going to cover a couple of case studies, Bell and Howell, Ablation Frontiers, and Life Touch. And we have a few minutes for some questions and answers at the end. To compare, we're going to talk about rapid tooling. Rapid tooling covers many manufacturing technologies. One is aluminum cores and cavities intended for injection molding. Rapid tooling is also known for urethane casting, or RTV molds. Rapid tooling is also used as a term for molds masters built by an additive manufacturing process. But for today's presentation, we're going to focus on rapid tooling for aluminum cores and cavities intended for injection molding. Continue on with terminology. Additive manufacturing, a process to create a part or tool by building it layer by layer. This is also known in the industry as additive fabrication or layered manufacturing. Continuing with terminology, direct digital manufacturing, or DDM, is using an additive manufacturing technology to produce end-use parts or manufacturing tools. But for this presentation, we're going to focus on Stratasys' FDM technology. This process can be used to manufacture jigs, fixtures, molds, masters, and inserts. A little bit about the FDM process. Now, direct digital manufacturing can be done with various additive processes. But again, we're going to focus on the FDM process, which is a Stratasys fused deposition modeling. And that is extruding plastic and builds layer by layer following a CAD-defined tool path. A little bit about the FDM materials. We use engineering-grade thermoplastics, such as ABS M30, ABS M30I, which is a medical-grade plastic, polycarbonate ABS blend, PC ISO Class 6 pharmaceutical-grade plastic. We also use All-Temp 9085, which is a high-temp chemical-resistant plastic, and polyphenol sulfone, which we refer to as PPSF. Again, a chemical-resistant, high-temperature thermal-grade plastic. Keep in mind that these materials are also the same materials used in injection molding. So we're comparing material to material here, but just different processes. If we look at product development today, we're seeing products with quicker product releases, more niche products, such as customized cell phones or iPads, more custom products like Nike shoes. We're seeing products with lower volume and higher margins. And we're seeing product designs with quicker design iterations. So these are the new trends in product development. With that, we're going to take a look at traditional injection molding using aluminum molded inserts, the 7075 T6 aluminum molds. With this, they use high-speed milling of 42,000 RPMs, pretty much identical to standard steel tooling production. Also with aluminum molding now, they're using controlled cooling and heating, pretty much the same as standard high production tooling. They're using full injections, same as production tooling, smaller cutters, deeper cuts, a family tool, which is a nested core and cavities built into the same tool insert, and automatic pickups. These advances in aluminum tooling are mimicking steel tools used for high volume manufacturing. The aluminum tooling is using these same methods. So aluminum tooling for injection molding has made a lot of advances today. So we're going to look at some advantages and disadvantages to aluminum tooling. One of the advantages is you can select a wider range of materials, geometries with higher tolerance specifications, superior surface finish with tooling, and if your volumes are high enough, your unit costs are at lower costs. But the disadvantages of using aluminum tooling is you have to come up with capital investment up front. With that, there's cost and time penalties for tool modifications. We have learned that 60% of design submitted for tooling ends up being modified. And that's where your tooling companies make their money. They're dependent upon those modifications. And so this is a big disadvantage with tooling. And also, design constraints. You have to have a minimum draft angle and a minimum radius in your corners. Part size limitations is also a disadvantage with tooling. Now we're going to compare that with direct digital manufacturing. Advantages of direct digital manufacturing is there's no capital investment required up front. Production parts on demand. You submit your electronic file and the technology starts producing parts. There's no cost or time penalty for design modifications. You have a design modification, submit your new electronic file, and you're off and running. No design constraints. This technology can build vertical walls and 90-degree corners. Complex geometries. This technology is very applicable for very complex geometries. In addition to that, this technology has large part capabilities. If we look at the disadvantages, we've seen a little bit earlier about the materials available with this technology. So there's limited material selections. This technology is not applicable for high volume production. This technology would not be your feature detail choice. Surface finish is dependent upon that layered manufacturing process. And strength will be dependent upon orientation with additive manufacturing. If we look at best practices for direct digital manufacturing, it's best for relatively low volumes or short-run production or bridge tooling applications. It's best for complex geometries, which eliminates expensive tooling and reduces long lead times. Digital manufacturing would be best for part acceptability where aesthetics are not as critical. So you have to look at the application. We're going to get into that a little later. Physical properties are acceptable with this layered manufacturing or additive process. When we look at trends, Red Eye has been tracking since 2004 the end use of its services. And our information tells us that 25% of Red Eye customers that order services through Red Eye, those parts are being used in a manufacturing environment, either end use or manufacturers such as jigs and fixtures, tooling. In addition, 42% of Stratasys' Fortis 3D production systems owners have used their systems in part manufacturing in some frequencies. With that, we know that Dimension 3D printer users are using their platform as a manufacturing tool. Let's look at some direct digital manufacturing applications. Manufacturing tools such as jigs and fixtures. If we look at the image on the right, we see the plastic component holding stepper motors and micromotors to fixture these motors. Well, this fixture, prior to using digital manufactured jigs, was 7 or 8 aluminum machine parts assembled together. Or with direct digital manufacturing, this jig and fixture grew as one piece. End-use parts. The lower image on the right shows a bin full of brackets. These parts were built over a weekend. Another application is thermoforming and paper pulp tools. This technology has the unique ability to build porous models. What I mean by that is we use a unique build style that allows air gaps inside the model, which is ideal for drawing a vacuum through. And so it's a great application for thermoforming and paper pulp tools. The next application is bridge tooling. You see in the lower right-hand image a plastic core and cavity for injection molding, which produced the automotive part in the foreground. Okay, now this part of the presentation I'm going to talk about 7-step decision-making process. So if I'm a procurement agent, manufacturing engineer, and I have my component in my hand or my drawing, I need to decide which manufacturing technology I'm going to use to produce my component. So I'm going to look at part complexity. If this is a very complex part, direct digital manufacturing is the direction I would lean. If it's a simple geometry such as a cereal bowl, I could simply go, it would be more cost effective to go to rapid tooling as a manufacturing process. Material options. If the material options that direct digital manufacturing do not offer, the thermoplastics that we listed earlier, aren't applicable, well then I'm going to have to go to rapid tooling. But if the materials are acceptable, direct digital manufacturing is a great alternative process. Quantity. Quantity is geometry size dependent. If I have a large quantity requirement, I'm going to have to look at rapid tooling to be most cost effective. If my quantities are low to mid-range, geometry dependent, direct digital manufacturing is a great choice in my decision-making process. Tight tolerances. Now, I'm claiming that direct digital manufacturing and injection molding dimensional tolerances are equivalent. But there are some cases where press fits and inserts, pins and posts, rapid tooling would be a better choice. But for most part, direct digital manufacturing and rapid tooling are dimensionally accurate, both technologies. Here's the big one, revisions and modifications. If I have a design that I need to have produced and I'm not confident in the stability of the design, I'm going to choose direct digital manufacturing. With direct digital manufacturing, if there is a design modification, I don't have to have a penalty of cost and time. If my design is stable and it's a simple design, then rapid tooling would be your choice. For most parts, like I said earlier, 60% of designs submitted for tooling ends up having modifications to the design. Surface smoothness. Well, with direct digital manufacturing, you have your layered process to manufacture the part. With rapid tooling, you get your smooth surface finish. Parts on demand. If I need parts now, obviously direct digital manufacturing is the technology that I'm going to choose. So we came up with this 7-step decision-making process to help us guide us through the process of deciding which technology best fits my application. And each application is different, so you have to look at the application, your quantity, and the criteria of your design. Now, I would take this chart and use it as a wall hanger to help me guide my decision-making process. With that, we're going to do a comparison against injection molded versus digital manufactured parts. So if you look at the graph, and we look at the blue line, that's time and dollars. So you capitalize on your tool, you submit it for creating the tool, and then you wait for the queue for injection molding. So that's usually a pretty long time. We're going to talk weeks and months, and at a very high startup cost. With direct digital manufacturing, you submit your electronic file, and production starts immediately. Now, depending on quantity on our x-axis, there's a crossover. And between the green and red arrow are what we're calling, for this presentation, digital manufacturing. It's not a replacement for injection molding. In some cases it is, but for most cases it's a bridged tooling application. And we're going to talk about some case studies now to show how this is applicable. To do that, we've got to do a price comparison. We're going to compare low-volume injection molding, the unit cost of the part. To get that, we have to look at the programming for the tooling, which is two sides, or a core and a cavity. We're going to look at the cost of the material, and we have to look at the cost of production per unit. So you take the number of units required, divide it by the cost of the tool, and that's the unit cost of the part. For direct digital manufacturing, for the cost, we're going to look at programming costs, production costs, and post-processing costs. So those are the costs associated for producing a direct digital manufactured part. Okay, one of the case studies we're going to show today is Bell and Howell. Bell and Howell had a unique request for 200 customized scanners. And inside of that scanner is a flag hold down, or a flag used in these high-speed scanners. Bell and Howell came to digital manufacturing because they had a low volume requirement of 200 pieces. These pieces are 3 by 1.5 by 1/2 with no undercuts, and the material is ABS white. So we're going to compare this geometry set against tooling costs and direct digital manufacturing costs. So we look at the quantity 25 in our x-axis. You can see the blue line at $230 per part for quantity 25. Over direct digital manufacturing, it's $30 a part for quantity 25. Continuing down the X scale here, we see quantity 50. With tooling, if you only needed 50, you're going to be paying $103 a part for those 50 pieces. Or direct digital manufacturing, you're going to pay $25 a part for quantity 50. We slide all the way over to 250. Remember, Bell and Howell needed 200, but they chose digital manufacturing over rapid tooling, even though at that unit requirement, the cost was a wash, either technology. But if there was any risk for design change or design iteration change, digital manufacturing could have accommodated that change very quickly. Or if there was a design change in tooling, you would have to submit that change, pay the penalty in time and cost. The next application is a company called Ablation Frontiers. Ablation Frontiers was a venture capitalist-funded company as a medical device manufacturer. The application was a handheld surgical tool, and they had a need of a quantity of 2,500. If we look at the geometry, we can see it's complex. There's undercuts, top and bottom. And during the whole production phase of this component, this product was redesigned 7 times during production, which means, well, in particular, what this company did is they submitted their design to digital manufacturing, and they submitted their design to rapid tooling. So they did both technologies in parallel. So if we look at our comparison chart, at quantity 25, a rapid tooling injection molded part was at $675. With direct digital manufacturing, it was $270. If we look at quantity 50, we see the price is coming down with the tooling at $357, and it's a little lower at quantity 50 with direct digital manufacturing at $210. Now you look over a little bit further to the right, you see the crossover is about 100 sets. At 100 sets, cost or price-wise, either technology would get you into that price range. However, this manufacturing engineer was not confident in the stability of the design. They still needed 200 sets for clinical trials. During clinical trials, or manufacturing, we would call that beta or an alpha phase of product development, you're still at risk for design change. And so he continued with direct digital manufacturing beyond quantity 100, and we did 200 sets for clinical trials. The results of the clinical trials dictated more design change, which was simply modify your design, submit your electronic file, and digital manufacturing started to produce 2,000 sets for first customer ship. Because this was a new product that did not have market feasibility, they did not want to take the risk of investing in tooling on a product that didn't have a market yet. Lucky for this company, this product was accepted, orders were being placed. They were doing 20,000 sets annually. They went to injection molding at that volume. And this company, Ablation Frontiers, was bought out by Medtronic. So this is a good case study to show how and when to use direct digital manufacturing in comparing to injection molded aluminum tooling. The last case study is a company called LifeTouch. LifeTouch is a photographic studio for your annual yearbooks. The application was a digital camera enclosure. They insert a digital camera into this enclosure and factory calibrate. The volume was 3,000. They needed to produce 3,000 of these enclosures, calibrate, and ship to their studios by the time the school year started. So they had a very short production window. The material choice was PCABS. Let's look at the frequencies of change on a digital camera. Every time the digital camera company changes its design, LifeTouch needed to change its enclosure design. So they didn't have enough time to use the product to amortize the cost of the tool over time. So digital manufacturing was a good choice for them. You can see it's a very complex geometry. It was so complex that the tooler gave them a no quote, so it was not moldable. So LifeTouch went on to have digital manufacturing produce 3,000 of the digital enclosures. Now, the image in the background was produced by digital manufacturing. The image in the foreground, they went with injection molding. However, these two parts were assembled together as an assembly. The camera was mounted, calibrated, and shipped. I hope what we showed you today is giving you enough information to make decisions for your product development using digital manufacturing or rapid tooling. What we see, this image here, is the factory of the future.
Thank you, Jeff. Now I'd like to take just a couple minutes to answer a few questions that came in during the presentation. Jeff, you ready?
Sure.
All right. Okay, one question that came in asks, how large of a part can be built with this process?
Stratasys has a machine called the 900MC, which is equivalent to about a 36 by 24 by 36 in dimensions. So this machine can build pretty large components. However, thermoplastics bond very well. And with this, we've built dashboards, bumpers, grills, aircraft parts. So this technology works very well for large parts.
Thank you, Jeff. The next question I have here is, the method discussed doesn't produce parts with the same strength as injection molding, so how can it be used for production? How can it be used for production?
Again, you have to look at the application, Joe. This technology works very well. It's orientation dependent upon the orientation the component was built. But most importantly, you have to look at the application.
Okay, we have a question about surface finish that says, how does the surface finish compare with injection molding?
Well, of course, earlier in this presentation I said that these components are built in an additive process or a layered manufacturing process, so your surface finish will reflect that layering process. With injection molding, you get the surface finish of the surface of the aluminum tool.
keep on schedule. We're going to take just one more question before wrapping up here. If we didn't get to your question today, we'll follow up with you via email and get an answer out to you. The final question here asks, the accuracy of injection molding is a lot better, isn't it?
I would disagree. I would say that direct digital manufacturing and injection molding are dimensionally tolerance equivalent, meaning injection molding has issues with warping, bending, sinking. With direct digital manufacturing, this technology holds dimensional accuracies very well. So I would say, including in the case study I used, one component was digital manufactured, the other component was injection molded. These two components assembled very, very nicely.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Up on the screen, you'll see the URL, stratasys.com/low volume. You can go to this address to get additional information on direct digital manufacturing, including case studies, white papers, a copy of this presentation, information on sample parts and benchmarks, and contacts for Red-Eye, as well as the other Stratasys units. We'd like to thank each of you for your attention during this presentation, and we hope you learned something of value today. Now I'll turn it over to Rachel, who will close out our session. So long, everyone.